When I buy something, I even question myself, do I really need this? Or do I just want to buy it for the sake of buying, right? Just asking ourselves these questions make a huge difference. It's like, why are we buying this? Do we buy it out of need? Do we buy it out of desire? There's nothing wrong with it, but when you're constantly buying stuff, then, we have to start questioning ourselves. Why do we keep buying so much stuff? Is it because, we are so conditioned by society to buy stuff to make us feel better? Or is it because, we feel like we're not enough? And, most people don't value their worth. They think they're not worthy enough. So they have to buy all these things to keep up with the Joneses and feel like they can be accepted by society. But when you can learn to let that go and just be okay with what you have and who you are, then, that real work will start coming to you and you'll start letting go of certain things that don't serve you anymore.
Welcome to Spark Joy, the podcast dedicated to celebrating the KonMari method and the transformative power of surrounding yourself with joy and letting go of all the rest. With your hosts and certified KonMari consultants, Kristen Ivy and Karen Sochi. And now, here's the show.
Self-confidence is one of those things that some people seem to be born with while others struggle and struggle, feeling confident some days and completely defeated the next. It can feel very elusive, but our guest today absolutely believes self-confidence can grow and flourish in all of us. Sheena Yap Chan is a blogger, podcaster, consultant, author, and speaker whose sole purpose, drive, and passion is to help build women's self-confidence from the ground up. She currently inspires women every day through her podcast called the Tao of Self Confidence, where she interviews various women about their inner journey to self-confidence. Welcome to Spark Joy, Sheena.
Welcome, Sheena.
Thanks for having me today.
Well, you have very interesting background, so we'd love to start there. Can you give us just an idea of what your journey has been like in terms of self-confidence and building a brand around that, and some current projects that you're involved in?
Sure. So, a little bit about myself. My name is Sheena Yap Chan, and I've started this podcast called the Tao of Self Confidence just because I never felt like there was enough platforms to celebrate women, for one thing. And, self-confidence is huge, especially in my life, because before my confidence wasn't as high as good as it is today. So for me, it was like, I wanted to create something that can help women out there, especially women of Asian descent. We've been told to just live and do things a certain way, not realizing like life can be lived, in many different ways, right? And showcasing women who've been there, who've gone through it, who've had their lowest lows and be able to overcome it shows that anything is possible and we can go out there and live the life that we want. So, I used to work a 9-to-5 job, and, one day I decided to quit and just go on this journey, and I didn't even know where it was going. I just knew it was going somewhere.
Those are the best ones, right?
Yeah. It's scary, of course, because you have no idea what's going to happen. That fear of the unknown, not realizing, the unknown is actually something we can embrace and just, enjoy it, right? Enjoy the present moment. So yeah, I've been doing the podcast for almost 3 years, and it's been great, meeting so many different women and, having this platform, podcasting, which is so amazing, it can be reached all over the world. So many women have, reached out to me saying how it's helped them. And now I'm just, always creating different ways and resources and tools to help more women out there with their confidence, because this is something that we deal with on an everyday basis. It's not like we're confident 100%. There's days where we're not confident. I have days where I just don't even want to talk to people and, feel like my confidence is just, down in the dumps. But I always pick myself back up and keep going and help others do the same.
Wow. I would love for you to share one of the stories that are discussed on your podcast with our listeners, like maybe an example of someone who's kind of embraced self-confidence after kind of having a low moment in their life.
Sure. There's so many women I've interviewed where they've had low moments, whether it was, going through domestic abuse, I remember interviewing a lady who was born with no arms. And, it was hard for her to accept herself, especially, growing up, you had no arms and feeling like they can't do anything. And, because of her situation, she's now able to become a motivational speaker and go out to travel different countries and speak her vision and speak her voice and just be herself. Right now, she's the first armless pilot. She's a black belt in karate. She surfs. She drives. She does everything with her feet.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, which is amazing.
Wow.
It's like, here's a woman who's been through, a very difficult time in her life, but was able to overcome it. And if someone like her can do it, we can do it as well. And there's many other stories like women who's been through cancer, still able to overcome it and still create a life where they can be happy with themselves and accept themselves for who they are, even if their hair is falling off, things like that.
Wow, that's so inspiring. I mean, I just, when you think about people who have really been, dealt a difficult set of circumstances and still they manage to find a way to rise above it, I think that that's just so incredibly inspiring. So, Sheena, what is your message about self-confidence? Do you convey through your podcast about, what self-confidence is all about?
Well, for me, the message for self-confidence is, it's not. So many people have this notion that being self-confident is like you always have to be loud and boisterous. You're positive 100% of the time. And let's face it, like not all of us are born that way. Not all of us are made that way. You can be an introvert and still be confident. You can be, shy and still be confident. It's just learning to be your authentic self and just pushing forward, right? If there's something that scares you, but that if you jump over that fear, it can bring you to so many opportunities in your life, then you do it, right? You do it even if you're scared. All of us have done something in our life where we're scared. Even creating this podcast, I was, super scared as to like, what would people think of me, if they'll like the podcast, if they'll like my voice, if they think I'm some crazy Asian girl. But, but we all go through it, right? And just learning to be vulnerable, right? I mean, I think being vulnerable is huge, right? Having that relatability factor really helps us understand and empathize other people as to what they're going through. And when we can learn about people's problems and how we can solve it and just be aware of what's going on in our lives, then we can have, that confidence to seek the help or seek the solutions in our lives. So yeah, for me, confidence is, being your authentic self, loving yourself, and also, doing the things that scare you the most. And I mean, like a lot of us have fears. I still have so many fears that I have to go through, but I take it day by day.
I love what you just said about the fear and that, that little voice that keeps saying, do it anyway, do it anyway, do it anyway. I think that in the times that I've felt bravest, there's that little voice that just keeps saying, you just have to do this. No matter what, you just have to do it and push through. And I think that it's really not about not having fear. It's about doing it in spite of the fear. What would you say some of the people that you've met that seem to have, that have really great self-confidence, do they have any common traits or characteristics? How do you feel that they might be different than, the rest of us who are working on building our self-confidence?
Yeah, I mean, some of the women that I've interviewed, some of the traits that they have, well, for me, one main trait that I've noticed is that they all have a huge purpose, a purpose that's bigger than them, right? I think having a huge purpose is really important in our lives, because when we have that purpose that's bigger than us, then we have the confidence to do anything, right? When I first started this podcast, it was about, it was first something that I wanted, because it's like I never found a podcast where women shared about their struggles of self-confidence and how they're able to overcome it. But the more I kept doing it, I knew it was bigger than me. I knew there was women out there who are suffering, who feel like they're alone, who feel like they can't do it. And just having the support system really helps them, get through their life day by day, right? So, having a huge purpose is important. Women out there who I've interviewed, they built their confidence based on their purpose, whether it's to educate women on being more financially independent or just becoming a better mother to their children. That's what drove them to have that confidence and, being able to love themselves, and not just the good parts of yourself, like the good, bad, the ugly, everything about yourself, right? I mean, as women, we're so judgmental on ourselves when it comes to the bad parts, right? It's like when we make a mistake, it's like it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
And we have to learn to be okay with making mistakes and, embrace our weaknesses and flaws, because that's what makes us beautiful, right? Sometimes our greatest weaknesses and flaws can be our greatest strengths. And, when you can learn to love yourself, and I mean, truly love yourself, right? All of you, the good stuff, the bad stuff, then, you have that confidence to go out there and do it, right? And, most women, they've stopped seeking that validation. I know sometimes it's easier said than done, but when you start working on yourself, it does get easier. That heaviness falls off and you feel a lot lighter when you stop caring if people like the way you look or, like what you do, because you can't please everybody. It's impossible. And just learning to figure things out along the way. So most of the women I've interviewed, when they started something, they had no clue what it was going to look like. They just knew they wanted to create something, and they just figured it out along the way. And as women, we can do that. We can figure things out along the way because we've done it all our lives, right? When we have no clue what we're doing, we ask somebody, we look it up on the internet, we do research. And that was huge for me because as a woman, especially as a woman of Asian descent, I always felt like I had to figure everything out before I started something. And that actually delayed me a lot because I just kept on figuring it out, not taking action, not realizing, we just course correct along the way. If we make a mistake, it's not a mistake, it's feedback. It's like, this doesn't work, we'll try another way. So that was another trait that I noticed that actually helped me a lot, knowing that, we all make mistakes. We all can figure it out along the way. And we have that capability and that confidence to do it. And just learning to be grateful, having that mindset of abundance. Is huge, right? When you can say you're truly grateful for your life, more things, you attract more things into your life, right? Because of that energy that you have, that high frequency energy where you're always just grateful for what you have, no matter if it's, the water that we drink, the food we have on our table. Some of the basic necessities that we have in North America are actually, a luxury in third world countries, right? And
Sure.
tend to forget that because, we don't see it sometimes, right? When you travel different countries and you see some of these people have to eat food out of the garbage cans, right? So being grateful is huge. So those are some of the traits that I've noticed in the women that I've interviewed.
Beautiful. And I think that as consultants working through the KonMari process with our clients, we definitely understand the impact of being grateful and the energy that it's not a tangible thing, but it's something that we put out into the space when we're thankful for things we're letting go of, and it comes back to us in incredibly different types of ways. And Karen and I understand that innately, but we have listeners who right now are at a place where they may be struggling with getting started with a major event like a KonMari tiding event, which can take anywhere from 48 hours to 40 plus hours to complete in full. So I would love, Sheena, if you could share some practical tips for someone who may be struggling to jump into something where there's a lot of fear of unknown. It's a big task ahead. There might not be that innate confidence up front when starting to address clutter. So I would love for you to share some tips that could help our listeners kind of get over that hump.
Sure. So, one of the things that I usually advise listeners is that, take things step by step, these little, steps that you can do. It doesn't, most people think you have to take a huge step to create confidence or to increase confidence or, to better yourself. So really it's these little actionable steps that really create that huge result. And, the more we can do these little steps, the more confidence we can build and the more we can keep going. So, maybe today you just start saying something nice to yourself, right? It's going to feel weird when you start saying something nice to yourself, right? Because it's something you're not used to, right? Looking in the mirror and you tell yourself you're beautiful, like it feels awkward, right? And that's fine, right? Anything you do something for the first time just feels awkward, but you just keep doing it. So, just taking little steps at a time is really huge, because taking that first step is actually the most important step. A lot of people are very hesitant to take that first step because of the fears or the things that they tell themselves. So, when you take that first step is really a big accomplishment. And then you can, give yourself a pat on the back and see what happens next, right? What's the next steps you can do that to build more confidence? Another great thing is surrounding yourself with great people, right? People who you want to be like, right? Kind of emulate from. I mean, I have, groups of people that I go to when I have problems who can help me out, who tell me what I need to hear versus what I want to hear, because that's huge, right? If you're doing something wrong, they'll tell you. And sometimes you might not like to hear that, but it's necessary. So some things like that can help you out, give you feedback on what you can improve on. And even, doing simple things is, reading books, going for a workout, having some form of meditation. For me, like lying down and closing my eyes and listening to meditation music isn't for me because I just fall asleep. So for me, like running really helps me clear my head. So, this is stuff that you can do according to what works for you, right? As confidence, there's so many different ways to build it, but it's learning what fits you will help you get there, right? There's things that will work for you. There's things that won't work for you. Maybe reading a book may work for you. Maybe it won't. But that's something you have to figure it out.
I really like what you said earlier about that mistakes are just feedback, because I think a lot of times when we're working with clients or when we're doing our own tidying, we have a lot of guilt about the things that we've bought that no longer, or maybe they never worked. And to acknowledge that, oh, this was a mistake is really hard, and I think doesn't help our self-esteem. But to look at it as, oh, this is feedback. This is information that I need in order to go on with my life. I mean, I've had clients who've said, I feel like my whole closet is a mistake. I feel like I bought these clothes thinking I was somebody that I wasn't. And so and that's really hard. I mean, not only is it hard from a practical perspective, like, I've spent all this money on these things that don't work for me and I don't like. But it is also this, this is information that you've just received about the person that you want to be. And, it's hard to put a price tag on that. So I think that this is a really great way to reframe things that may appear to be, flaws or mistakes or things that are wrong with us. And is to think of them as being more information that we've earned, and it can influence our more positive decisions along the way.
Another aspect of KonMari that we should definitely address with you, Sheena, is the process of visualization, thinking about what an ideal lifestyle looks like for you and also ideal living environment. We use that as kind of a foundational way of grounding the decision-making process that shortly follows thereafter. So we're curious if you could give us a little bit of insight into how to connect that with self-confidence.
Sure. Some of the things that I've done is just, how do I see myself if I was this confident person, right? I really believe that what we think about, we bring about, right? A lot of people don't realize that their brain is like like hardware on a computer, right? If you feed it with good stuff, it's going to work well. But if you feed it with negative stuff, it's going to create a virus, right? So, some of the things I do is mostly like mindset stuff, right? If I, tell myself something negative, I immediately switch it to something positive, like the total opposite. Like, if I tell myself, oh, I feel ugly today, it's like, no, I actually feel beautiful. Because, it's that quick to think of something that's the opposite of that negative thing that you're thinking about. So, I keep telling myself when there's something negative going on, I do do my best to switch it to something positive as much as I can. Just I keep, picturing myself in my head, what it's like to be that person that I want to be, what the kind of things I want to, attract in my life. And some of the things I also do is journaling, right? I write, something that happened today or something that I've thought of, every single day, whether it's like 3 lines or 3 paragraphs. Journaling is really huge to kind of like just dump all your thoughts on a piece of paper. It really does clear your head and give you more room to visualize on the things that you want in your life. Some things don't really work for me, like having a vision board. I've done it a couple times. It just hasn't, affected me. It can help other people, but like I mentioned, right, there's different ways for you to have visualization. Some people do use a vision board. Some people don't. Some people, have a book of manifestations that they try to manifest into their life, and they write it down because there's something magical when you write something down on a piece of paper. So every person's different, and there's different ways to do that. For me, it's just visualizing in my head what I want, learning to manifest it, learning to, have things that I want in my life. And, obviously I'm still practicing, but the more I keep doing it, the more great things happen to me. So those are some of the things that I've done.
Those are great tips. And I love how you said that maybe a vision doesn't necessarily have to be a vision board. It doesn't necessarily have to be photos. It could be the written word or some other combination of the two. I think so many people think that if they don't resonate with this idea of creating a board, then there's just no point in kind of doing the exercise. So I like how you gave multiple examples there of how we can shape our vision in order to be more confident. And I also saw that you recently sold your condo, and I discussed in episode 33 that I also joined that club. I recently let go of my home. So you're also quite the tidier and the minimalist. You have let go of a couple of things in your life in order to live on the beach for 2 years. So we'd like to hear about that experience as well and how you define minimalism in your own life.
Sure. I mean, that decision, it wasn't actually a hard decision to make. One day I just said I wanted to live somewhere outside of where I was living, which was in Toronto. And, Toronto's cold. So it's like the winters suck. And I was just like, I wanted to live on the beach. And, out of nowhere, like Hawaii popped up. And I was like, I'm going to live in Hawaii. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, to be honest. I was just like, I was going to live there. I was telling my friends and family. They all thought I was nuts. They all thought, sure, whatever. You're just, all talk. And, things just started falling into place. Like my condo was up for renewal, and I just said, I'm just going to sell it, and got rid of everything, like, the furniture, the car, everything. And, when you let go of those things, it's just like, you feel so much lighter. Like, there was this heaviness that you've been carrying for a long time, and it's just like all gone. And until this day, I still, live in like 2 suitcases. That's all the things that I've owned. But, I was able to live in Hawaii for 2 winters, which is, amazing, because I never even thought that that's something I could even do to begin with. But I made it happen. And, for me, minimalism is, just, living with less to live with more. I hope that makes sense. Just like less things for more experiences in your life. Right. I don't really have that many things, but I do have more life experiences. I've traveled more. I get to spend more time with my grandmothers, family members. And for me, that's way more important than having a Louis Vuitton bag or, having, all the stuff. Right.
Right.
It's like, we define ourselves through these things, not realizing like these are just things. They're just, they make you happy for a moment, but not forever. Having these experiences really help you realize like what you're capable of, learn to love yourself, learn to adapt to different environments, learn to just learn more about other people's cultures and what they do, and, have that inner peace in yourself. So yeah, for me, minimalism is living with less to live with more.
And as a result of that experience, do you have a tidying tip to share? I definitely want to ask you, considering you had the experience of living out of 2 bags. Like, what was that like? And what did you learn through that process?
Well, for me, I've learned to let go of a lot of things. And I've done, certain things that might not make sense for people, but makes total sense for me. So with like, when it comes to my clothes, I only wear three colors. And because it makes my life a lot easier, I've learned to let go of not shopping as much. When I go to the mall, it's like, if the three colors that I wear aren't there, I just don't buy it. Right. And this has actually helped me a lot because it's learned to help me focus on, other things in life versus like, what am I going to wear today? Do I really need this shirt in 10 different other colors? It's like, no, I just three basic colors and that's it. And it's really helped me in a huge way to, live with less, like I mentioned. And even with my diet, I've gone plant-based, just really helps me learn to, focus on just living a cleaner life, a healthier lifestyle versus, for when I was eating meat and dairy, there was just so many choices. And, I was just using my brain to figure out what I'm going to eat versus, I can use my brain for other things. Like how can I help women become more confident, or what tools and resources can I create to help women out there? So, little things like this have really helped me learn to let go of a lot of things and focus on the more important issues in life. And, you don't have to do something as drastic as I have. You can just start with letting go of one thing. Maybe today you're just going to stop wearing yellow. I don't know, something small like that. And the more you keep doing it, the more you can adjust along the way. Like when I first started with my clothing, I said I would only wear 6 colors, and then it went down to 3, right? And it just made my life a whole lot easier.
I think it's super interesting when we work with our clients. A lot of times, there's this transformation that takes place, and it really has to do with those decisions that we have made, that we make about all the things that we have. So what you just said about really limiting the number of decisions that you're making by making a conscious decision that like you'll only wear 3 colors or you'll only eat this kind of food. It really, instead of it feeling prohibitive or as though are keeping yourself from being able to do something, it's really liberating because then it gives you the space to do something more or different or better or different, something that brings you more joy. One of the things that seems to happen with a lot of our clients is that buying things and shopping and just having things in general seems to really take a back seat. But sometimes it's a process that takes time. How do you suggest people get started with reducing the number of decisions and things in their lives? You mentioned earlier that you started with this idea of 6 colors. How did you decide on those 6 colors? And then how did you get down to the 3 colors, for example?
Well, I mean, when deciding that, I just made that conscious decision. Like I just got sick and tired of like buying so many things and not even using half the things that I bought. Before it started with, if I haven't used this in over a year, I was going to give it away. And, I gave away so much stuff. And then, as I started working on myself and, learning about things like minimalism and how I can live a better life, then that's when I started deciding to, see parts of my life where I could get rid of stuff, right? Like clothing. It's like, do I really need to wear 10 colors, or can I make it to 6 colors? And then when 6 colors was too much for me, it's like, okay, well, maybe 3 colors might be better. And, it's just, you just keep working at it and figuring it out along the way. And, when I buy something, I even question myself, do I really need this? Or do I just want to buy it for the sake of buying? Right. Just asking ourselves these questions make a huge difference. It's like, why are we buying this? Do we buy it out of need? Do we buy it out of desire? There's nothing wrong with it, but when you're constantly buying stuff, then, we have to start questioning ourselves. Why do we keep buying so much stuff? Is it because, we are so conditioned by society to buy stuff to make us feel better? Or is it because, we feel like we're not enough? And, most people don't value their worth. They think they're not worthy enough. So they have to buy all these things to keep up with the Joneses and feel like they can be accepted by society. But when you can learn to let that go and just be okay with what you have and who you are, like, then, that real work will start coming to you and you'll start letting go of certain things that don't serve you anymore. I mean, I remember, I bought this bag, designer bag for the first time. I just bought it because, I guess it felt good at the time, but then months after was like, I really had no need for it. And I ended up giving it away. And after that, like it felt good, you know, like, yeah, at first I was like, man, I spent so much money on this, but then it's like, you know, everything happens for a reason, and you just have to learn to let it go and just keep moving forward.
I think that a lot of people, I know I certainly could say this about myself, you know, that it was easier to buy something that kind of said, oh, I feel valuable as a person rather than do the internal work. And, you know, I think culture just kind of encourages that. You know, it's like, you know, all of our advertising paints images of this amazing life that you will have and that you'll lead, and these people that will want to be around you if you have this car or this outfit or this handbag or whatever it is. So I think tying this back into self-confidence is really stripping that away gives you then the room to actually begin to build self-confidence. Would you say that that's something that you have found to be true with the folks that you interview and that you work with?
Yeah. I mean, you know, a lot of them have learned to, you know, live with less. You know, a lot of them travel the world. A lot of them, you know, just, you know, focus on what's important, the message that they want to convey to the world versus like saying they have all these things. You know, success to them wasn't, I got the car, I got the house, I got, you know, the white picket fences. It was just like, you know, I love myself more. I learned to live with less. You know, I've learned to work on myself every single day. You know, that's what life was for them after. Like life was great because they were able to work on themselves, and it wasn't because of result of because I bought all the stuff. It was because they did the internal work. They did, you know, they you know, peeled the layers out and see themselves for who they are, see their authentic selves.
Defining success confidently. Love it. We'll wrap things up here with one of our favorite questions at this very moment. What sparks the most joy for you?
For me, what sparks the most joy is my podcast, really. I know it may sound cheesy, but I really love, you know, interviewing women and helping women out there and getting messages, how it's helped them with depression, and be able to, you know, create their own blogs, go out there and, you know, do public speaking. And, you know, it amazes me how many women come up to me and tell me how much it's really helped them. You know, for me, it's just like, if I can help one person, I've done my job. And, you know, the fact that the feedback I've gotten is so positive and so empowering and inspiring has, you know, given me more purpose to keep going no matter what happens. Cause, you know, when you have a podcast, it's not always easy. You know, technical wise, it's like you want to throw your computer against the wall. Scheduling wise, you just want to like kill yourself.
We've been there.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, these things happen, but you just keep going, right? You keep going because you have a huge purpose, because there's someone out there who's going to hear it and realize if it's possible for one person, it's possible for me.
Sheena, do you have any parting words of wisdom for us?
Yes. So, you know, I always tell people, you know, behind every successful woman is herself. And I want women or even men to realize that, you know, you are what creates success. It's up to you to do it. You have that decision power to go out there and live the life that you want. And, you know, it may not always look like how you pictured it in your head, but, you know, everything will fall into place. It may not make sense now, but it will make sense later.
Such a great message. I really appreciate having you on the show and sharing some of your really great insights about how to be the person that you were always meant to be. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. It was really an honor.
Yes, thank you, Sheena. I feel like we can now move forward, facing the unknown without fear and finding our own version of what success means to us. Thank you.
Not a problem.
To connect with Sheena, visit the Tao of Self Confidence.com and follow her on Facebook and Instagram at the Tao of Self Confidence. Sheena is also offering a great free self-talk tape for our listeners, which we will link to in the show notes.
So now we want to hear from you. Tell us your burning, tidying questions or share stories about how KonMari has impacted your life.
You can find us at sparkjoypodcast.com and click Ask Spark Joy to leave a question or comment for a chance to be featured on next week's show.
While you're there, sign up to join our Spark Joy podcast community and get notified when each episode airs.
You can also join the Spark Joy Podcast community on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at the handle @SparkJoy Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in, and we hope your day sparks joy.
Thank you for listening to Spark Joy with your host, Kristen Ivy of For the Love of Tidy in Chicago and Karen Sochi of the Serene Home in New York City. Spark Joy, the podcast, is not endorsed by or affiliated with KonMari Media Incorporated. The opinions expressed on this episode represent the views of the co-hosts and guests alone and do not represent the corporate position of KonMari Media Incorporated or the KonMari consultant community.